The dark secret narcissists take to the grave finally exposed. The secret narcissist carried to the grave. There's a secret narcissist will never tell you. A truth so dark, so destabilizing that they'll guard it with their life. It's the key to their illusion, the crack in the mirror they never want you to see. And today, we're going to expose it. But if you found this video, know this: you're not here by accident. You're one of the chosen ones. The ones who are starting to see through the performance. The ones who can no longer ignore the unease deep inside. You've felt it, haven't you? That something wasn't right. That the charm, the control, the charisma was all a mask. And if you've ever been entangled with a narcissist, you know just how convincing that mask can be. They seem invincible, confident, untouchable. But behind that facade lies a void they'll do anything to hide. When the truth comes to light, their power collapses. And it all begins the moment you stop playing their game. If you're ready to break free from the illusion and reclaim your energy, subscribe to Chosen One's Awakening. You're not just healing, you're rising. The illusion of strength hides a desperate fear. Narcissists spend their lives building a fortress of lies, a carefully crafted image of perfection, power, and control. To the outside world, they seem magnetic, confident, almost irresistible. But that version of them is a performance. A fragile illusion held together by the attention and admiration of others. What they don't want you to see is what lies behind it. A deep, relentless fear. The fear of being seen for who they really are. Broken, insecure, afraid. That fear drives every manipulation, every lie, every attempt to control. Because if someone truly sees them, not the mask, but the person underneath, the game ends. Their entire identity is built on maintaining the false self. A self that cannot survive the truth. So they protect it at all costs. And if you ever start to question that illusion, they'll turn on you fast. Not because you're wrong, but because you're too close to the truth. And the closer you get, the more unstable they become. Because in their world, being exposed isn't just uncomfortable. It's existential. They don't fear losing you. They fear losing the control they had over how you saw them. The chosen one sees what others ignore. Most people don't see it. They fall for the charm, the performance, the crafted identity the narcissist puts on for the world. But you saw something different. You noticed the cracks, the coldness behind the smile, the moments when their mask slipped. That's not a coincidence. It's because you're a chosen one. You were never meant to stay in the illusion. You were meant to wake up, to break free, to see what others are too afraid to face. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's why they targeted you in the first place. Your light, your intuition, your clarity. You became a threat the moment you stopped believing the script they handed you. Narcissists don't want partners. They want reflections. People who validate their illusion. But when you stopped reflecting back their fantasy and started holding up a mirror to their truth, the energy shifted. You're not just another person in their story. You're the one who saw through the story. And that makes you dangerous. Because the moment you stop playing the role they assigned you, their control begins to fade. The mask was never meant to last. From childhood, narcissists learn to survive by pretending. They build a false self to escape the pain of rejection, humiliation, and inadequacy. It starts as a defense, but over time it becomes their identity. The real self gets buried fragile, ashamed, terrified of being exposed. And the false self grows louder, bolder, more convincing. It's not real confidence. It's camouflage. And like any mask, it can only hold for so long. The narcissist depends on others to keep the illusion alive. Praise, attention, admiration, that's the fuel. That's the glue. Without it, the cracks begin to show. When no one's watching, they unravel. That's their nightmare. To be left alone with their real self. No performance. No applause. Just silence. And in that silence, They're forced to feel the truth they've denied their entire life. That underneath the act, there's a deep emptiness they cannot escape. That's the secret they carry to the grave. Not that they fooled others, but that they never fooled themselves. They always knew the mask was fragile. That's why they fear losing you. Not because of love, but because without your energy, the illusion collapses. When you walk away, their world begins to crumble. The moment you stop feeding their ego, everything starts to shift. For so long, they believed they had control. That you would never leave. That they could twist your perception, rewrite your reality, and you would still stay. But the moment you take your power back, the illusion breaks. You stop explaining yourself. You stop reacting. You stop giving them access to your energy. And they feel it. Deeply. Because the narcissist's world only works if you play your part. Without you, their narrative starts to fall apart. The perfect image, the admiration, the control, it all depended on your participation. When you walk away, they are left face to face with the one thing they've always feared. The silence, the void, the unbearable truth that they are not in control. And in that moment, they feel something they never prepared for. Powerlessness. Because you were never the broken one. They just needed you to believe that. But now, the power is in your hands. And that's when they begin to crumble. Not with noise. With silence. Not with anger. With absence. That's the consequence they never expected. To be ignored by the one they thought they owned. Bombus. Their power depended on your confusion. Narcissists never wanted you to be strong. They wanted you to doubt, to second guess, to walk on eggshells around their moods and manipulations. Because as long as you were confused, they were in control. Confusion was their strategy. They twisted your words, flipped the blame, made you question your memory and your feelings. Not because they didn't understand, but because they needed you disoriented, disempowered, disconnected from your truth. That confusion gave them room to operate, to rewrite reality in their favor. But the moment you found clarity, everything changed. You started asking the right questions. You stopped apologizing for things you didn't do. You saw the patterns, the cycles, the tactics. And in that moment, the fog lifted. That's when they lost you. Because once your mind is free, your heart follows. And there's no manipulation strong enough to rewire a mind that remembers its own truth. That's the turning point. When the spell breaks, and the person they once controlled becomes the person they can no longer reach. Badia? Their power depended on your confusion. Narcissists never wanted you to be strong. They wanted you to doubt, to second guess, to walk on eggshells around their moods and manipulations. Because as long as you were confused, they were in control. Confusion was their strategy. They twisted your words, flipped the blame, made you question your memory and your feelings. Not because they didn't understand, but because they needed you disoriented, disempowered, disconnected from your truth. That confusion gave them room to operate, to rewrite reality in their favor. But the moment you found clarity, everything changed. You started asking the right questions. You stopped apologizing for things you didn't do. You saw the patterns, the cycles, the tactics. And in that moment, the fog lifted. That's when they lost you. Because once your mind is free, your heart follows. And there's no manipulation strong enough to rewire a mind that remembers its own truth. That's the turning point. When the spell breaks, and the person they once controlled becomes the person they can no longer reach. Badia? The void they feared is all that remains. Without someone to reflect their fantasy, the narcissist is forced to confront the one thing they've run from their entire life. Themselves. No more projection, no more distraction, just the silence of a soul they tried to bury under lies. That silence grows louder with time. It haunts them in the moments they used to distract with chaos. and they begin to remember the calm they felt in your presence, the stability, the sense of being seen, but they also remember how they destroyed it. That's the weight they carry now. Not just the loss of you, but the loss of the illusion you kept alive for them. Without your energy, their world is hollow, and no new supply can fill that space. Because what you gave wasn't something they can replace. It was real, and real doesn't come twice. If you want to support the channel and help spread this message, consider becoming a member or sending a super thanks. Your energy makes this space possible. The chosen one isn't just aware, they ACT. Knowing the truth is only the beginning. What makes the chosen one different is not just awareness, but action. While others stay trapped in the cycle, you stepped out. You stopped explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped fighting to be seen by someone who only saw you as a mirror. You didn't just survive the manipulation. You dismantled it by choosing silence over chaos, distance over drama, clarity over confusion. You stopped feeding the lie, and in doing so, you triggered the one thing they can't handle: your absence, your peace, your strength. Narcissists expect resistance, not release. They thrive on the energy of conflict. But you gave them none. You gave them a closed door and a quiet mind. That's what undid them. Not a final fight, but a final decision. And that decision was your freedom. Their greatest fear was never losing you, but losing control. Narcissists don't build relationships. They build systems of control. You were never seen as an equal, but as an extension, a source of energy, a character in their script, and as long as you stayed in that role, they felt safe. But the moment you stepped out of the script, everything unraveled. They feared this day would come, the day you would wake up, reclaim your truth, and walk away not in anger, but in clarity. That's the loss they cannot replace. Not your love, but your obedience. Not your presence, but your participation. Because now, you see them as they are, and more importantly, you see yourself as you truly are. Not broken, not weak, not confused, but whole, free, awake. That vision of yourself is what they tried to destroy. Because if you ever remembered your worth, they knew it would be over. And it is. The game is over. The illusion is shattered. The chosen one has risen. You took back what they never deserved. The narcissist's nightmare is not your anger. It's your indifference. They were prepared for rage, for begging, for breakdowns. But not for silence, not for peace, not for you thriving without them. Because that silence speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. It says you're done. Not emotionally entangled, not energetically available, just done. And in that stillness, their illusion falls apart. Because everything they built depended on your energy. And now that energy is yours again. You're no longer reacting to them. You're creating without them, living beyond them. They never expected that. They never believed you'd stop playing. But you did, and now they're left with what they always feared: their reflection. You didn't destroy them, you just stopped saving them. And that changed everything. Now you see the truth. What will you do with it? Moe. The greatest power you have is your awareness. Now you know the secret they tried to hide. Now you've seen the illusion for what it is. The only question left is, will you reclaim your energy and rise? Or will you fall back into the silence that kept you small? Write in the comments, I see through the illusion.